Hi, this is Paul. Anti-theist Noel Plum did a video, Jordan Peterson Destroys Christianity. And I want to talk about that video a little bit. This is actually going to be a two-part section where in the first part I'm just going to deal with Noel Plum's video. In the second part I'm going to deal with Think Club's response video to Noel Plum, and I'm going to have a long play of Tim Keller's Faith Angle Forum talk in 2013. So this is part one. I just have time for a little bit before I have some other things I need to do this morning. So let's jump in. This is Noel Plum explaining, well, we'll have him explain what he explains.
Yeah, that Jordan Peterson is in many ways good for Christians, which I'll explain a little bit later. And I'm pleased about that, right? Because I want everybody to feel good about themselves.
Okay, Jordan Peterson is good for Christians because now what he has just done is outlined for us his credentials as a secular humanist, because a secular humanist wants to say that life is about feeling good about yourself, enjoying yourself, having a great sense of well-being. That is the telos of secular humanism, and he's very much on the same page as Sam Harris in his conversation with Jordan Peterson, that via well-being we can use rationality to fine-tune our lives and fine-tune society so that we can have something like happiness equality. That's what secular humanism in the West is really shooting after. And so, like many, even anti-theists will say, well, I don't think Christianity, if Christianity stays a private thing, not out in the public, but a private thing, and we reserve the public for rationality, well-being, that should be the dominant public frame. So Christianity stays private. If you get something out of your little Jesus thoughts and your life after death thinking, fine, but keep it at home, keep it quiet, keep it out of the public sphere. Don't promote it or publicize it, and don't vote on the basis of it. So Jordan Peterson is good for Christians, but not good for Christianity. Why?
I believe that he is bad for Christianity and for the promotion of Christianity and for the endurance of Christianity within society. And the reason that I say that is, although maybe from a North American perspective he may seem like something different, from a British perspective it's very much more of the same.
Now, I'm not by no means an expert on the British perspective. A little bit later in the week I'm going to talk to Glenn Scrivener and probably get more of a British Anglican perspective. But these tensions also exist in North America. And what he's about to describe has very much been on the plate in North America for a very long time, which I'll probably get into more in the second video.
He is the nature of modern Anglicanism, or at least the nature of the Church of England. Specifically, Peterson is nothing new in those terms. We are used to, in the UK, hearing senior figures within the Church of England talk about the Bible purely as allegory and of the truths that can be found within it. Even luminaries such as the Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, would say things along these lines.
Now, I'm not going to doubt what he says. Again, I don't think this is exclusively a British fact. Even Christian teachers who believe in the resurrection of Jesus, the virgin birth, even young earth creationists actually do this with the Bible. The question is, well, what is the question? Well, and now I'm going to pull in N.T. Wright here, because actually N.T. Wright makes a point that I think actually makes Noel Plum's point very well. This is the question that has been fascinating the Christian atheist conversation for over 100 years. And this apparently is deeply within the Church of England.
Popular British culture today only really knows one theological debate. Does God intervene in the world, or doesn't he? Christians, people assume, believe in a God who does strange things like virgin births and resurrections, whereas most people think science has disproved them. Journalists sometimes ask bishops whether they believe in the virgin birth and the resurrection. This is a trick question, because it makes the bishop appear either as a naive fundamentalist if he or she says yes, or as a dangerous liberal if they say no. And this then collapses into the well-known yes, Prime Minister cliché, where the Prime Minister says, we have to keep the balance in the Church of England. What balance, asks his wife. Oh, between those who believe in God and those who don't, comes the response. And the sociologist Grace Davy once asked an interviewee, do you believe in a God who can change the course of events on Earth? And back came the response, no, just the ordinary one.
So, in other words, Noel Plum's point is, I think, correct. And he's making the point that in England, this has been the situation for quite a long time. And so his belief is that while Jordan Peterson might make Christians feel better, and in fact, because he's an intellectual, heighten their ability to think rationally, Jordan Peterson is going to be simply part of the destruction of Christianity that has been ongoing in England really since the First World War.
But if you listen to these people talk, they will talk about the truths that can be found in these stories and what we can learn from these stories. They have been hammering home time and again exactly the same kind of points that Jordan Peterson has made his stock in trade. Now, the reason for this, I propose, is because the Church of England, like Dr. Peterson, the Church of England is full of highly intelligent individuals, highly intelligent theologians.
And note here now, smart people don't believe in things like the virgin birth or the resurrection, the Jesus bodily resurrection from the dead. Smart people think that away because they know science has disproved it. Go back to the Dallas Willard Veritas Forum because, well, please explain to me how science has disproved that. So this is the argument, and this is, again, worldviews are created, generally speaking, by group sourcing, by social pressure, by elephant herd mentality, and this is one of these underlying topics, as if C.S. Lewis is not a smart person, as if N.T. Wright is not a smart person, as if Francis Collin, one of the people very important in spelling out the human genome, is not a smart person. This is an old argument that simply doesn't wash, but let's let him get to the rest of his point.
That effectively creating a Christianity that flatters their intellect. The problem with it is that its selling power is close to zero.
And Noel Plum is exactly right there. The selling power of that kind of Christianity is close to zero because where's the motivation? Well, I can go to church, and maybe if I like the music, or maybe if I don't have anything particular to do on Sunday morning, or maybe if my friends go there, there's all kinds of reasons to going and listening to moral lessons and little drops of wisdom being put out, but the world is full of wisdom purveyors. And so you get a little bit from Christianity, you get a little bit from the old man next door, you get a little bit from Oprah, you get a little bit from your psychologist, you get a little bit from whatever's coming through the culture right now, you get a little bit from your favorite musician. Wisdom is to be found all over the place. And I think Noel Plum's critique of what has happened to Christianity in England is dead on correct. Now, I'm going to get a little bit deeper into this in the second part of this video. This first part is just going to be fairly short, actually. Again, maybe I'll crunch them together, or maybe I'll just shoot this first and then do the second one, because the second part's going to be a lot longer. My question is he right about Jordan Peterson on this? Because I think he is actually wrong on Jordan Peterson on this. Now, this is a big part of the debate right now amongst crunchy Christians about Jordan Peterson within Christian communities. Is Jordan Peterson a net gain or a net loss? Obviously, my thinking is he is a net gain. I talked to Esther O'Reilly yesterday. She thinks he's a net gain. Mark Galli, editor of Christianity Today, he thinks he's a net gain. There's a whole group of people around me. Sid Helema, director of Faith Formation in the Christian Reformed Church, who I've done a couple conversations with in my denomination. He thinks he's a net gain. There's a whole bunch of people that say, no, we think that Jordan Peterson is actually going to be good for the church. Now, why? Well, I think it's for all the reasons that Jordan Peterson makes Sam Harris nervous. And I think we saw it on display in this little tidbit in Vancouver 1, when they start talking about religion and they start talking about prayer.
So let me say, Sam, I do not believe in a supernatural God, but the God that I heard Jordan just describe, I do not have any difficulty understanding why he might care if you masturbate, and I also don't have any trouble figuring out how he might answer prayers.
Well, tell me more.
Aha! Right there. Now, Sam, obviously, he's got all of his status. He's not going to back down. He's not going to, here on this stage, say, well, maybe there is. Now, and maybe religion isn't so bad. He's not going to do any of that. But right here is the camel's nose getting into the tent. And for many people, the whole camel is going to come. And so Sam Harris has a right, something in Sam Harris's consciousness committee is made very nervous about Jordan Peterson, and he can't pin him down on it, but he knows this is a problem. And I think for this reason, Noel Plum doesn't understand Jordan Peterson and his threat as well as Sam Harris does.
Well, I can tell you how a prayer might be answered.
Okay, but these are
it's specific, so you could let me do that.
It'll be interesting. So I'm not Jordan. We've not talked.
Another camel's nose. It'll be interesting. What if we start praying to this God? What if I start reading the Bible? What if I start getting into this? Because here's the thing with the secular. I will often sit down with secular people who they've had some trauma in their life. There's some pain that has happened, and I will ask them, would you like me to pray for you? And they understand that this says something about my disposition towards them. I do want well-being. There is a degree of commonality in terms of well-being here. And then they say, well, what can it hurt? And this is really the weakness of the anti-theists. And this is exactly where Adam and Think Club sits, because Adam is an atheist, but what really are they hurting? Okay, so they're going to go into the room and they're going to pray for you. No, don't pray for me. I've got an old story about that I won't tell right now. But
About this, if I heard an answer from him that actually would satisfy me as to what the mechanism of action might be, that'd be pretty interesting. And if he can tell me what I heard, I think it would suggest that we're not just making up stories here.
Okay, so you might like this, you maybe not, but it's possible. Okay, so imagine that. Okay, so let's imagine that hellish situation that you laid out. Okay, but let's put the extra twist in it, because one of the things that we both decided, I think, was that you also have to build in the intent into that. So let's say the hell that we're talking about isn't the victim of the terrible massacres that you laid out in the jungle story, but a perpetrator. Okay, so someone who's actually acted in a malevolent manner, truly malevolent manner. Okay, or maybe perhaps we wouldn't have to take that extreme case. We could say, well, perhaps you've decided that you've decided that you've seriously done something wrong, okay, and that you want to get away from hell, you want to make things better.
So moral realism, there's another camel's nose. Moral realism, once you decide that there's right and wrong, and you're on the wrong side, well, that's a real sign of moral realism, because suddenly it's not just me projecting my desires onto the world or me justifying my behaviors, but that I myself have violated the moral law. What do you do about it? This is where Jordan Peterson just makes me a very happy Calvinist.
Okay, so here's an exercise you can try. So what you do is you sit on the edge of your bed and you say, okay, what I did was wrong. And you have to really believe this, right? So you've thought about it. It's killing you. It's killing you. So now you're penitent and you're confessing, let's say. And you're confessing to yourself as much as to anyone. And you say, I really want to know what I did wrong. And I really want to know what I could do to put it right. And I'm willing to accept any answer that will manifest itself to me. You try that. See what happens.
Well,
that's a prayer that will be answered, and it won't be answered in the way that you want it to be answered. I can bloody well tell you that.
Right there. That's Jordan Peterson in evangelist mode, because Sam Harris is going to hem and haw, and well, we don't know where the answer comes from, and we can agree with that. That's right, we don't know. And that's exactly the chink in the armor of rationalism. You can't know everything. You're not going to know. But what you do know is that the world isn't right, and you are partially to blame for it. What's the first step in a 12-step program? Misery, deliverance, gratitude. Heidelberg Catechism. What's the first step? That how great my sins and miseries are. There's the camel's nose. And, well, now, suddenly, if there is no God, who cares? But I know, and I do care. My conscience is screaming at me. It's eating me out. I need to deal with this. Where can I go? Where can I go to be free? I need a power greater than myself, not only to free me from the bonds that are within myself, but also to look at me and say, you are forgiven. And I can clean up after you. Or Joseph saying to his brothers at the end of the book of Genesis, you meant it for evil, but God used it for good. No, Noah Jordan Peterson is not just someone out there spinning tales and finding moral nuggets in the Bible. It's this aspect right here that this is how he is bread-pilling people, because people know they have screwed up. You live long enough, you're going to have regrets. You're going to know you are responsible for doing damage in other people's lives. And maybe you cannot get absolution from those other people. Maybe they will never forgive you for what you've done. Or maybe they're dead and they're not available to pronounce forgiveness for what you've done. What do you do then? You understand that there's a moral law. You look for the moral law giver and you ask for forgiveness and you say, how can I be forgiven? Well, now suddenly you look at Christianity and what do you discover? Well, here's the answer, one that you know in your heart. You can't make up for the wrong you've done. You can't do it. But someone has already done it for you. Then you say, how can that be true for me? How can that forgiveness apply to me? And how can I begin to live in that misery? How great your sin and misery are. Deliverance, that Christ out of sheer grace has given his life for you. Gratitude. Okay, given what he's done for you, how can you be Christ to a sinful, broken world? Jordan Peterson is not just spinning out stories and finding little droplets of wisdom and sharing this to people. That is why nobody is coming to the Church of England, at least the one that Noel Plum is talking about, because they can't say, you have done wrong, and your God knows it and sees it and has already taken care of what you have done, and there is forgiveness and there is a road forward. Now, Peterson struggles in that point, and Esther and I talked about that yesterday, and I'll post it in a couple days, but this is why Peterson is different.